I used to go through life and God didn't cross my mind during a work day. Now God crosses my mind multiple times a day, and I've kind of become a master of one-liner prayers every day. And it's amazing to me when I stop to think about it, because I didn't used to be that way.
That's what Jubilee's all about. Jubilee is simply pausing and remembering the great things that God has done in our midst, in your midst, especially our midst in the last 2 years, and pausing and giving thanks. Pausing and thanking God for what He's done. It's a cycle that's as old as the Old Testament and dates back to the beginning. One story I want to share with you on how that comes about in the Old Testament, what that looks like in the Old Testament, is the story of the Exodus. We've preached on it, we've talked about it. You know the story, how God working through His people, God working in His people, delivers them out of slavery in Egypt. He brings them out of Egypt through the wilderness to the edge of the Red Sea. As they stand at the Red Sea, Pharaoh's army is chasing them down, and they're going to die in the wilderness. And God, through Moses, parts the waters, and His people go through the waters to deliverance and to safety. And as they stand there on the other side, watching Pharaoh's army try to chase them through the waters, are destroyed. Do you know what happens the next thing in the story? The very next thing. Then Moses and the people of Israel sang this song to Yahweh, saying, I will sing to Yahweh, for He has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider He has thrown into the sea. They stop and they give thanks, singing. And then once Moses and all the people of Israel stopped singing, this is what happens. Then Miriam, the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a tambourine in her hand, and all the women went out after her with tambourines and dancing. And Miriam sang to them, Sing to Yahweh, for He has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider He has thrown into the sea. They stop and they give thanks. They stop and they give thanks for what God did for them, this great thing God did for them in water, which is what baptism is about. This week I had Barb in our office look up some statistics. In the last 2 years, we've had 36 baptisms at St. Andrew. 36 in the last 2 years. 3 of which, by the way, are adults. 36 baptisms. And they're all fun. They're all great. And it's a time where we get in baptism and we come and it's stopping and sing the great thing that God is doing in waters of baptism right here. Sing the great thing that God has done and pausing to give thanks. But there was one particular Sunday, and you all got to witness it. That was really, really cool. Was really special. It was July 10th, if you want to know the date, because I went and made sure I had it. July 10th, we baptized 6. Yes, 6 people in this worship service. Yeah, it was a great Sunday. I see grins on some of your faces, and you remember what it was like. It was a great Sunday. And I remember talking through with Pastor John in the days before, is okay, how are we going to baptize 6 people in this service and not take all morning? Because there is another service following this when we worked out the logistics and worked out the details. And don't get me wrong, it was great doing it. It's fun doing baptisms, and that was a really fun morning to do baptisms. But I got to share with you something. When I'm doing baptisms, either here with Pastor John or doing a baptism, or even if Pastor John's doing one and I'm sitting here, while they're cool, this is a work day for me. And so as fun as it is and as good as it's happening in here, there's always this section of my brain running in the background that says, what's next? What's following this? Where are we in time? And what do I need to get ready to do next? So when I have the opportunity just to sit and watch a baptism, that's special for me. And especially a baptism of one of my grandchildren. This was 2 weeks ago, actually. This is my third grandchild. My first 2 grandchildren, my older 2 grandchildren, I baptized them. They were from Springfield, Missouri. This, my grandchild, and Brock, you can flash that up there. There you go. Yeah, I think she's pretty stinking cute, but I'm a little biased, so it's okay. But I had the opportunity. We decided that for Melody, is her name, Melody, we were just going to have her baptized at her parents' church by her parents' pastor. So I got to do what many of you have done, first time for me ever happening, is I got to go over and simply be grandpa, which was really cool. And simply go over and be grandpa. And it was a fun weekend, and all the stuff going on Saturday with the family and the commotion and things happening, and Sunday morning rolled around and we met up at their church and talked to the pastor briefly before the worship service and what's going on, and we assembled at the worship service, and we sat in the front 2 pews, like right here. Right here, and it's a smaller place, and we were sitting here, and we're sitting in the front row and looking like this as the pastor preached, but that's okay. And their worship service is the baptism falls immediately after the sermon, and we got to the baptism part, and he had us all stand up. And he starts going through questions. Now, if you've ever seen the more formal baptism that we have, we do it more in an informal fashion. There's a series of questions. Do you renounce the devil and all his works and all his ways? I do renounce them. You're going to raise this child in the faith? Yes. You can teach this child about the Word of God, bring him to church? Yes. All these questions that we summarize and we go through. And I must admit, during this time in the worship service, I was playing a game. And the game was this, is I was guessing the question before he asked it. Occupational hazard, I guess. And we got through these, and the pastor led us into the Apostles' Creed that we just said, the Apostles' Creed, and that I believe in God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, and in Jesus Christ. And about the "in Jesus Christ" part, something drastically changed. And it dawned on me that this creed that we're saying is the same creed that was said at her mother's baptism, was the same creed that was said at Melody's grandmother's baptism. It was the same creed that was said at baptisms for 2,000 years. This statement of faith. And it's the reality of what God suddenly is doing in this baptism. He's bringing Melody into this family of God, this one statement of faith. This faith that we have said, I've said it probably every Sunday for most of my life. Many of you have the same way. It's this same faith that this church is founded upon. He's bringing Melody, he's doing it, bringing Melody into this faith. And it was overwhelming. This one holy faith. And my brain kept running in here. It's all this stuff that I talk about. We talk about this all the time. We teach about this all the time. It's this things and stuff of baptism. It's this identity. Her identity is now in Jesus Christ. He comes and he stamped his name on her. She belonged now to him. This is belonging to God. It's this deluge, it's this flood of grace that came in the water, that came to you, came to me. I got to watch it be personal in coming in my granddaughter. And the reality that all her sins have been forgiven. Did you catch the all, folks? You need to. All her sins have been forgiven. Even when she's 14 years old and copping attitude with her mother, yes, even that sin too. All her sins have been forgiven. I think at times we look at these things going on at church and these things going on, and they're just nice and they're good. But God got personal. This gift of baptism, what God's doing and did on that 2 weeks ago, was personal for Melody. It was personal for our families. He poured out this blessing and it was personal. I make my living with words. Words I preach, words I use to teach, words that I use to counsel, words that I use to write. But I got to admit, I don't have the words. I don't have the words to express the thanksgiving at what God's done. I'm at a loss. I'm not that smart to be able to express the gratitude and the thanks of God getting personal in our lives. So I ask you this morning, what great thing has God done in your life? And before you answer, I know the sun is up, and I know the rain has come, and I know crops are growing in the ground. But get personal, people. Make it personal. What great thing has God done in your life? What great thing has he done in your life? And who are you going to tell about it? Or I'm going to back up. I'll back up this way. Get ahead of myself. What great thing has he done in your life, and how are you going to thank him for it? How are you going to thank him for it? I'm not going to sing your blessing. Maybe this is my way of thanking God, is telling you this story. But how are you going to thank him? And who are you going to tell? Who do you know in your life that needs to hear what great thing God has done in your life? Who do you know who's hurting? Who do you know doesn't know Jesus Christ? Who do you know is desperate? Who do you know is beaten down? Who do you know that needs to hear the great thing God has done in your life? Who do you know? And who are you going to tell? Bow your heads with me, please. Father in heaven, we give you thanks. I give you thanks this morning for the baptism of my granddaughter. I do not have words to express what's going on in my heart, so I just say thank you. I ask you for these people. They can see the incredible thing you've done in their life, and they can share it. Share it with you and share it with someone else. Amen.